Week 11 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few tight ends I looked at off the wire this week. The first tight end, Juwan Johnson of the New Orleans Saints. So surprisingly, he's still out there in 53% of fantasy leagues. And obviously, this is the last week for fantasy owners, most likely to go out there and get Juwan Johnson. Now 4 games in a row with double-digit fantasy points after he had a couple down games from week 4 to week 6. Week 7 at Chicago, 5 catches, 79 yards. Week 8 versus Tampa, 5 catches, 53 yards. Week 9 at the Rams, 3 catches, 31 yards, found the end zone. In week 10 at the Panthers, 4 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. So I know they're going on by here in week 11. Is this New Orleans Saints team? But like I said, Juwan Johnson, he's still out there in 53% of fantasy leagues. This season's been a great year for him where he scored double-digit fantasy points. 7 out of the first 10 games of the season is Juwan Johnson. Obviously, Rashid Shaheed traded away at the NFL trade deadline as well. It's more targets it's opening up. And Tyler Show, obviously a young rookie quarterback, only a few starts under his belt, and a young quarterback's best friend is the tight end position and security blanket. So with all those factors, even with going on by, Juwan Johnson definitely a good ad this week. The next ad, Colston Loveland of the Chicago Bears. So Colston Loveland, he had the breakout game in week 9 in the comeback victory at the Cincinnati Bengals. 6 catches, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then week 10, I thought he played well versus the Giants. 4 catches, 55 yards. I know Cole Kmet came back in that ball game, but he still went out there. And a decent game was Colston Loveland. So now 2 games in a row where he's had 8 or more fantasy points, including the big game at Cincinnati in week 9. And week 11, good matchup coming up at the Minnesota Vikings, a defense that can't stop anyone for the most part, and they've given up the 12th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. So Loveland's a high draft pick, obviously 10th overall in this year's past NFL draft, going over the impressive rookie Tyler Warren, and he's getting more involved weekly with this Bear offense. So definitely an ad this week, available in 54% of fantasy leagues. Next tight end, Theo Johnson of the New York Giants. So Theo Johnson, he just finds ways. It don't look pretty at times, but he goes out there and he puts up numbers, is Theo Johnson for the most part. And I know Jackson Dart now, we don't know if he's going to play in week 11 where he got concussed in week 10 versus the Bears. But Theo Johnson, the last 3 out of 4 weeks, double-digit fantasy points. And with obviously Neighbors out for the season, pretty much Wanda Robinson, Darius Slayton, the only 2 other options in the passing game. He's going to make his plays and get his targets. Week 7 at Denver, 3 catches, 66 yards, a touchdown. Week 8 at Philly, 3 catches, 20 yards. Week 9 versus the Niners, 3 catches, 27 yards, a touchdown. And week 10 at the Bears, 7 catches, 75 yards. So Theo Johnson, big target. Giants, they're going to be trailing a majority of these games the rest of the season, where they're 2-8 on the year. And week 11 versus Green Bay, it's going to be most likely the same game script. But Green Bay does give up the 7th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. So Theo Johnson, a good ad this week, and he's available right now, 58% of fantasy leagues. Next tight end, Cade Otton of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's been very underrated over the last month of the season, is Cade Otton, where he's had 4 out of 5 games with double-digit fantasy points, and he's coming off a big one in week 10 versus New England. So week 6 versus San Francisco, 5 catches, 51 yards. Week 7 at Detroit, 7 catches, 65 yards, 9 targets. Week 8 at the Saints, 4 catches, 40 yards. Week 9, the bye, in week 10 versus New England, in a game they were trailing majority of that one. 9 catches, 82 yards, and 12 targets. He's a big target. Obviously, 6'7", 6'8", especially in the red zone, he can make things happen. And like I said, beginning of the season, he didn't do much. And then from week 5 on, he's been a consistent playmaker for this Tampa Bay Buck team and fantasy owners. I know his percentage went down after he went on bye in week 9, but he's getting peppered with targets. Mike Evans, he's not going to come back anytime soon. Chris Godwin, even if he returns, he's still banged up. And Baker Mayfield's the type of quarterback where we've seen him spread it out all season long. So with all those factors, Cade Otton is going to continue to have a role in this offense, and definitely an ad this week. In the final ad, Dawson Knox of the Buffalo Bills. So we'll see if Kincaid misses time for this Buffalo Bill team. But Dawson Knox out there in 99% of fantasy leagues. We know he was a good tight end many seasons ago before they drafted Kincaid, was this Buffalo Bill team. And if he has to miss time with the hamstring injury after he left for week 10's loss at the Dolphins, I think Knox in deeper leagues is a good ad. So the last few games for Knox, week 8, Carolina, catch 15 yards. Week 9 versus the Chiefs, a catch 30 yards. And week 10 at Miami, 3 catches, 37 yards. So like I said, if he's going to be in the lineup, here is Dawson Knox. I think he could be a tight end that can help fantasy owners. That's a few tight ends I looked at off the wall for week 11 of the fantasy football season.